This is a Peanut Farms production. Scrambled Eggs by C.F. Ayers. 1. This writing begins, ingloriously enough, as an initial attempt at regaining some familiarity with doing so. Now it's been a long time since I set pen to paper, or fingertips to keyboard, whatever the case may be, and one of the first things that I've noticed is that my hunt has gotten a little slower, and my peck creaks and snaps as it goes. Another thing that I've noticed is a sudden and nearly overwhelming craving for a big pile of scrambled eggs. Well, what's the connection there, you ask? I'm not sure. Could be there isn't one. Yet the craving is there nonetheless. Whether or not that implies some odd connection between the two, I'll leave up to you. But aren't scrambled eggs great, though? They are so liberal, so non-committal in their design, so open to change and accepting of diversity. One can drop virtually anything edible into their midst and create what can only be called a culinary masterpiece, a cornucopia of smell and flavor rising from the pan and floating ever upwards towards the heavens, as though meant to be an offering to the gods themselves. Now this is assuming, of course, that the gods are up for a hearty breakfast at the time. Of course, there the question comes up, do gods even like eggs? And if so, how would they prefer them? Fried? Poached? Scrambled? Egg drop soup, perhaps? Maybe some odd form of egg dish that we mere mortals are unaware of. Now, from what experience I have in regards to interacting with those who consider themselves to be the servants of those various gods, I have come to believe that at least a majority of the deities must be very fond of eggs indeed, as well as chicken. Lots and lots of chicken. But if you think about it, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Seeing as how one comes from the other. The chicken, of course, is fucked either way. Now it seems to me certain that were the supreme ones to fill out a standard questionnaire, the preponderance of their holy utterances would land firmly on the side of scrambled eggs, as opposed to all of those other eggs. Again, anything can be added, and once added can hardly be taken away. The variety is endless and the mix nearly always complementary if tended properly during the preparation. The colors and the smells come together in such a way as to form that which has never existed before, and never will again. A being, so to speak, entirely unique in itself that can always be imitated or mirrored, but never equaled in its individuality. Then again, not being personally acquainted with any gods, at least any real ones, I couldn't say with confidence that there isn't a god or two that may hold the view that fried eggs are indeed better by far than scrambled, or that poached eggs are the only way to go, and who would prefer that those who claim to represent them here on this earth would best express that gratitude towards them for being their god in the first place by eating only the kind of egg dish that they would have them eat, while persistently encouraging friends and loved ones to do so as well. Now again, I would like to emphasize the point that I am not personally acquainted with any gods, deities, supreme beings, avatars, or other high-ranking officials in either this world or the next. I have, however, along the roads that I have traversed in my time, had the indelible pleasure of the acquaintance of many of the aforementioned servants that claim to serve the various deities that litter the spiritual landscape, and in fact, at various stops along those roads, have myself made a truly well-intentioned, but in the end futile effort, at counting myself among their number. You see, it turns out that the numbers vary depending on which bookie you use. There are a lot of fried egg gods out there, it seems, at least as accords with their representatives' presentation of them and of the various philosophies constructed over 2 or more millennia as to underlie their claim that only the fried egg is acceptable to God. Poached is considered vain in powerful circles. Egg drop is suspect, as it comes from a distant culture with odd ways. And scrambled. Goodness me, it's surely the breakfast of the great Satan himself. Now this can, they say, be shown through the fact that in the book of Genesis, Lucifer is represented by a snake. And everyone knows snakes will rob a nest of its eggs in a New York minute, and there you go. However, a bit of a snag comes up in the fried egg set when you consider the fact that there are at least a few different ways to fry an egg. They're soft, over easy, over medium, medium, hard, and so on. The differences are, for the most part, small, and they are entirely subjective, as virtually everything in our experience is. Yet there's something about the seemingly inconsequential differences in the way those fried eggs are cooked and served to the various groups of eaters that after a while, the individuals that come together to form those groups begin to believe that not only is a fried egg the only divinely sanctioned egg, but that the egg itself must be cooked for a certain time, at a certain temperature, and to a particular consistency of thickness and shape, with the color of the egg white being just so as the yolk stands tall and proud in its innocence, and so on. Each group of eaters presents their egg as it has always truly been and meant to be, and that any questions on the matter should now be considered fully and finally settled. Now, the fact that the particulars involved in the frying of the egg by any one of the groups are in fact different, as in comparison with any one or all of the remaining groups, seems to have escaped the notice of those tasked with keeping those kinds of things straight. Each group will remind any interested person that their process is indeed the proper one. The others, they say, while sincere, will quite likely spend their sad eternities baking in the fires that cook their demon eggs, and there you go. If another person says that their egg is cooked and served a little bit softer, or a little bit harder, they are given the patented doe-eyed look of condescension reserved for the hopelessly lost, and informed as quietly and kindly as possible that while it's true that this may all sound good and proper, what they have actually been doing is consuming ungodly eggs. And to he that would dare tempt all of the gods and all of the heavens by confessing a weakness for scrambled, be ye warned. The soft egg circle and the hard egg set, along with many of the variations of egg dishes that exist in between the two extremes, will come together in tandem, momentarily setting aside the differences that would have decided the soul's abode yesterday, in order to go after the true heretic among us today, the scrambled eggers. Those who not only go a little to the left or a little to the right of the mark, but who would callously destroy the morals and reputations and verily the souls of good and decent fried eggers everywhere. Those who recklessly mix every conceivable product into one big attractive glass bowl and stir madly until they concoct an egg mix that produces an egg unfamiliar to us, that we have never eaten, an egg we don't understand, an egg to be feared, an egg unlike our egg in every way, and therefore evil. All of this being the case, what is one to do? What if I like them all? Fried, scrambled, poached, runny, hard, soft? What if there is no egg, aside from a rotten one perhaps, that can in the end be a bad egg to myself or others? I have been warned on occasion by well-meaning fried eggers of the terrifying consequences that must inevitably accompany such an attitude of inclusion. It begins, I'm told, by allowing one's eggs to be cooked just a little less hard. Just a little, and only this once. Maybe a little runny around the yolk this time, as opposed to the firmness demanded by the Almighty God. Well, the godly representative observes, then you try it, don't you? Just a little nibble here and a little bite there, of course, and maybe you think, well, now this doesn't really taste so bad, does it? Still tastes like eggs to me, just a little different. Now, I know that the Father favors fried, but maybe he just hasn't tasted my wife's eggs yet. Well then, The evangelist continues with a somber look that is, I think, calculated to show a very proper and pious amount of concern while utterly failing to do either. "That's where it starts, isn't it?" they continue. "Just a little time saver, just a little runnier than normal. Surely the Almighty will understand. Yes, sir. That's where it all begins." Now it's around this point that the fried egger's eyes will narrow, and his tone will deepen, becoming somber, sad, as though being lifted on a brief current of air ever so slowly upwards through an echo chamber. "And you do know what comes next?" he asks, as his eyes widen into the look that is supposed to convey wisdom and understanding beyond the capacity of we mere normal men. A gleam shining his pupils from the stress of purposely not blinking, and the raised eyebrows of the man that assumes offhand that he is in possession of eternal verities that you and I have yet to dream of. At this point, you are expected to give the response, "No, I don't know. Please tell me." Now, whatever you feel about it, I recommend that you not only do so, but try to be a little breathless about it, as though under the weight of the revelation you know you are about to receive from this mighty man of God, your very breath is hindered in its expulsion. It does the spirit of the fried egger, you see, particularly the dedicated evangelist, an eternity of good to believe that you are under their intellectual and spiritual spell. Look at it as doing a kindness towards a brother. The fact that your sentiment is less than genuine matters little, due to the fact that this is pretty much the case in regards to everything your new friend is telling you as well. "Scrambled," he will respond. "Scrambled. Whipped thin with all the garbage added in. And before you know it, you're shoving those babies down, tasting better every bite. The devil takes holt, and you find yourself chowing down on platter after platter of nasty piles of runny scrambled eggs, full of every vile substance and poison known to man. You know, I've heard that some folks have even hidden hog brains in those damn things. Should tell you something, don't you think? You can hide brains in 'em, brother. Brains, man! If that don't tell you something, well then there you go." Now at this point, the better presenters will pause for a moment, and possibly even accent that pause with a deep, mournful sigh. The very best of them will do at least three things simultaneously at this point as well, those being: 1. They will in one smooth and practiced motion slide their gaze leisurely towards the ground, and then back up at you. 2. As the direction of the glance travels back upwards, they will reach up casually with one hand and run it through their hair. Adjustments are, of course, made at the moment in consideration of hats, dandruff, congenital baldness, or any other extenuating factors. Their eyes will lock on yours in such a way as is meant to convey a questioning wisdom, a look meant to supernaturally inquire into the depth of your understanding of the pearls of wisdom that your fried egger has gifted you with. You, of course, are still expected to be yet somewhat confused and uncertain. The knowledge is, after all, essentially beyond your spiritual grasp, being prone to the consumption of ungodly eggs as you are and all. Yet worry not, seeker of truth, their gaze is meant to convey. We are here. We know the answers. We are going to help you. Well, that's very kind of you, it really is. Very thoughtful. I am one who has learned to truly appreciate all the help I can get. I have listened, and am prepared at pretty much any time to hear again. I congratulate you on your zeal, and on the imagined strength of character that fairly drips from your personage as you enter into the required steps to bring about the salvation of my lost soul and the resurrection of my trampled spirit. Yet, we will always be at something of an impasse. It's unavoidable. This is so, you see, due to the fact that I have already determined in my spirit, deep down, that I enjoy the taste and the feel of more than one kind of egg. Whilst you have put enormous effort, I know, into the various means of convincing yourself that only the fried egg is sanctioned, I have already walked those trails, and found them to be littered with the bones of the broken faith of many a well-meaning pilgrim, crushed under the weight of a pious hypocrisy. The walls we build ourselves, are the walls that are nearly impossible to get over. This is so because we continue to build them higher and higher even as we climb. You limit yourself if you like, it's okay. Rest satisfied in the twilight of each day that you have dispensed your fair share of moldy bread and spoiled wine to any and all who would eat and drink, and congratulate yourself on the humble nature that you are so very proud of. Let the number of souls you believe yourself responsible for saving replace the sheep in your minds as you drift off into another dimension of life for a few precious hours each night, one by one, bounding gaily over the fences that are your dreams. Come the morning when you wake, set your frying pan to the correct temperature, crack your eggs in the prescribed fashion, cook your eggs to the proper thickness and shape, give the obligatory text of thanks for the dry and tasteless pseudo-food that you are about to consume, and once again take your call to spiritual warfare out into the world beyond your sacred doors, with the shield of faith covering your breast and the sword of righteousness held high, clad in the helmet of salvation and the shoes of the fisherman, move forth into the pagan hordes with the gospel of truth trumpeting from your divinely absconded lips, whichever gospel of truth that may be. If you talk loud enough and fast enough, no one will ever really know the difference anyway. When asked how you know, tell the curious that it is by faith that you know. It is by faith that your certainties in regard to your deity exist, a standard response to a standard question, were it not for the fact that in reality, faith itself is dependent upon what one does not know. The very concept of faith is one wrapped in doubt. Without a reasonable measure of doubt, faith is not possible. You need not have a single measure of faith in something you know to be true, as the fact of the knowledge in and of itself eliminates any need for faith. To claim knowledge is not the same as actually having some. A picture of a pie looks great, but it's going to taste like shit. To pretend to believe is not the same as believing, but is more akin to self-delusion. You injure your search for the truth when you spend all of your prayer time trying to convince yourself that you've already found it. But it's your egg. Have it any way you like. All I ask of you, O enlightened one, is that you allow me the same option. And man, aren't those scrambled eggs something?